Hello and hey, to mess around with the newly released Hunt the Night, this time early thoughts and a quick hitter review. Released April 13th, 2023 by Spanish developer Moonlight Games, Hunt the Night is a 2D dark fantasy action-adventure title that takes inspiration from FromSoft games like Bloodborne. You take on the role of our protagonist, Vesper Blackbone, a virtuous member of the Stalkers, a group desperately attempting to hold back the night and all the terrible horrors that arise from it from destroying the last of man. The world of Medrim is bleak and dark with a heavy tone. The game does an excellent job of conveying that the environment is hostile and that if venturing somewhere there is no light, you are not expected to return. The world building in the early stages of the game is great with a soundtrack to match. Unfortunately, that's where my outright praise will begin to taper off. That's not to say that the rest of the game is a dumpster fire. Far from it. I just have more issues with some of the things we're going to cover next. The combat. Combat is nearly all good. The mix of melee, gunplay, and spells are nicely balanced against each other, feeling mostly good to use. The main issue I do have with combat is the hitboxes. This is more to do with enemies, as some attacks that miss you leave hitboxes that linger a bit too long and will damage you if you walk into that space. Some animations also don't quite seem to line up with where they hit, and for a 2D game, it really feels like that has to be perfect. Combine this with the invincibility frames on a super spammable dash, you feel like you should be out of hits more often than you initially are. There's a bit of a learning curve that isn't steep, it just sets a bit of a false expectation, thus my inclusion of this gripe. Once you get good at the game, this will become a non-issue, but you definitely will notice it early on. The puzzles, again, mostly good things. Game handles telling you to look for clues quite well. A good example of telling the player something the correct amount of times. There's nothing overly difficult, and for a game like this, I think that's exactly where you want to be. My issue stems from things like your Dark Essence Umbra, which you gain the ability early on to send her out over miasma, to either teleport once she reaches solid ground, or just to use her to step on a pressure pad. Don't ask me how that works. I feel early on this was overused, at least for how slow she feels. It feels a bit tedious, which isn't something I want to feel for an ability that lets you teleport. The game is otherwise so fast-paced with you dashing around all over the place. This brings it to a bit of a halt, again just a super minor thing, and it's definitely a choice so that it doesn't become a dominant method of travel, but don't think that she was used to her full potential of the mechanic either, so it's worth noting. And characters, there's just too many characters. I know I praised the world building early, but everybody being interactable is a good thing turned bad if you're going to have an NPC tell you to talk to townspeople because they may improve your arsenal. Having dialogue with a bunch of characters that you have no idea who they are or who will remain relevant is fun when you're up for that gameplay and lore exploration. However, when you've had the idea implanted that one of these 87 people are going to help you with your progression, and that's all you'd like to engage with, it definitely stands out. Again, a minor gripe, but I do think it will begin to wear on a lot of people that just want to get through. And if this all sounds pretty good and my critique seems super weak, good, I agree. But there's just something that isn't grabbing me about the game. I feel if the combat was a little tighter, or if Umbra had something a little bit different about her, if the story or characters were fewer and more impactful, or that it just didn't feel jarring to get dragged into an early cutscene, I just have these mounting minuscule critiques that I've never had about any other video game. To give an example, I'd say the opening cutscene art is a bit amateurish. I've never cared about art in my life. So another example, that the font choice seems a little too basic. I couldn't give half a heck about font. It's just these little things where I'm noticing I'm playing a video game and it's bringing me out of the experience just enough. So for the price, I don't think I can blindly recommend this even to the demographic it's aiming toward, because it was almost, just so close to pulling me in, but not quite. I could feel the hand graze the back of my neck and touch my shoulder, but it was just too weak to actually grab me. For 10 to 15 USD, I likely push through that feeling and get to experience what seems to be a legitimately good game. But wagering the full 20 it asks for, I'm gonna play it safe and go with a refund. If I'm totally missing out, please let me know in the comments. I'm completely open to coming back to this game when it gets a discount, but for this almost unexplainable reason, I will unfortunately have to pass for now. So as always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Be safe, guys.